Thank you, Ashley and Joe and Louise, and good morning and welcome to those of you who are joining us online this morning. As you know, during the month of October, we have been looking through the book Spiritual Economics, written by Reverend Eric Butterworth. It's considered one of Unity's classics. And you know, as I was going through the handout this week and kind of considering what the topic and everything was about, I thought to myself, when was this book written? I mean, you know, when was it copyrighted? So I looked in the cover, and the copyright was 1983. And I thought to myself, 1983. Let's have a little quiz. Who had a cell phone in 1983? Who had an ATM card? Who did their banking online? On their phone, no less. Click. Deposit. Thank you for banking with Bank of Oklahoma. A typewriter, yes, and whiteout. Ooh, were we ever excited. But think about it. The point I want to make here is how, on the one hand, our society and our thoughts and our experience, our culture, has radically shifted in those 30-something years. And yet at the very same time, that which he's talking about has remained the same. So the first thing he starts saying when we're dealing with money and finances, and I want to pause 1 second and say, for those of you who are watching us online, the handout will be part of Pathways as a PDF file that you can download, and you all have the handout in your program. If you've missed the other two, they are out in the foyer. So today's topic is about work. And what Eric Butterworth was saying is that there is not a real economic depression. Where the depression is the depression of workers and their attitudes toward work. And I thought, that's no different. In fact, if anything, it has gotten worse in these last 35 years. And one of the reasons, or the basic reason he feels it is such, is because we no longer make things from start to finish. Back in the day, when you made a horse and buggy, well, you didn't make the horse, but you did make, all right, let's stop a minute here. Sometimes my images don't quite work all the way. But you started it, you carved out the wagon wheel, and you cut the leather for the top, and you did all that, and from beginning to end, you worked on a product, and you finished it. And there was a sense of craftsmanship, there was a sense of pride that you did it. But starting with the 20th century, and of course, as we all know, the Model T, what made it lower in cost was what? The assembly line. And all you did was go widget, 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 widget for 8 hours a day. And slowly but surely, people became dissatisfied with their work because they never really made anything. And I think that has gotten even worse in our current culture because we talk about bringing jobs and things back to America. But you see, America has changed. We are no longer a manufacturing country. We are a service-oriented country. Most of what all of us do are push buttons and send papers back and forth to people. We don't manufacture anything anymore, I mean on a large global scale. For most of us, the kind of jobs that we do are service-oriented jobs. So once again, because you don't make anything with your hands, there's something very visceral, isn't there, about making something with your hands, whether it's cookies or a carriage or whatever it might be. There's something about that. What I think is so interesting here is that if you look at some of the bestsellers in the New York Times book list, a lot of them have to do with what topic? Creativity. We lose creativity when we're going widget, 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 and we never see a completed project. And what's happening is that in the response to a work environment that doesn't have any creativity is a growing groundswell of people saying, where is my creative expression? And it doesn't necessarily mean in painting or singing. It's more about baking, or it's more about doing something for their neighbor, volunteering, whatever it might be. So there's a plus side to the negative side, and yet we see how insidious this is into our economy and into our world, and even in, let's just bring it right into our own heart. It makes us a little depressed because our jobs seem like pointless. We don't see it in product. We don't have any response back from what we do. And so he was saying that when we talk about the workforce, there's the ownership of our creative gifts being put into the workforce, and that's what we have to give. Because he talks about we don't go to work to make a living. We go to work to make a life. We go to work to make a life. Because you see, creativity needs something very valuable, and it's taken me a long time to get it. It's called tension and deadline. And as much as I hate it, it's the truth. And I look at myself in the years of ministry, I never would have written as much. Now, I love to write, and I'm a good writer, but I would never have written as much as I have written over these 30 years if I hadn't every 2 months had to write a newsletter. Every Sunday write a meditation. Every Sunday write a talk. And I wouldn't have, I'd say, well, you know, today it's Sunday and it's 10 a.m., I might do it tomorrow. And you know the day of the week tomorrow is, it never comes. And so there's something about work that we have to understand, that it is part of the tension on our creative endeavors that spark new inventions, that spark new discoveries, that spark new insights into our own life, as well as the gifts we can give to the world. And he said, coupled with this attitude is this whole idea of success. Now, this one really, it was like an aha to me. Because in the chapter, he was talking about success as being that continual drive and continual strive to do better and better and better. And I'm not sure that's even with us anymore. I think even that has subtly changed. And I'm going to give you an example. In 2017, on America's Got Talent, there was a young woman, 12 years old, from Oklahoma City. Darcy Lynn Farmer won $1 million. She performed 4 times on national television. What, 3 minutes each time, 5 minutes each time at the very most? She is a ventriloquist and a singer. Now, she is very good, and she deserved to win, and she was good. But not only was she a good singer and a good ventriloquist, but she was a good showman. And, of course, that's what appealed to people, and they voted for her en masse. The entire state of Oklahoma. Did you vote for Darcy Lynn? She's one of our own. Okay. But here's what I want you to hear. 12 years old, won a popularity contest throughout our country, was gifted with $1 million, and I don't know how many television interviews and things that she went around the country. Still to this day, you can Google her name, you can buy tickets to her next performance. She's only 13. That was a year ago. This is beginning to symbolize our definition of success. X Factor. America's Got Talent, Britain's Got Talent, The Voice, whatever it might be, the popular voice with a big amount of money for a very young child. Let's segue to someone else. The Queen of Country, my favorite gal, Reba McEntire. Us Oklahoma redheads have to stick together. She was born in 1955. She was 22 before she was 10 years after Darcy Lynn in age. And even then, she didn't become famous. It was almost another 10 years. She was in her mid-30s before she really became somebody whose name was on the lips of people saying, oh, right, Reba McEntire, we know her. And when did she become popular? In about the 1980s, when we are talking about. How many countless hours did Reba practice compared to Darcy Lynn? She hasn't got enough years yet to practice that much, has she? Think about it, though. In those years between when Reba McEntire became famous and popular and got $1 million, and just last year, when Darcy Lynn Farmer won that $1 million, how our mindsets have changed. Our mindsets. I'm going to be an overnight sensation, going to get the big money. But my question is, what happens to those who don't? What happens to the runner-up? What happens to the ones who auditioned and didn't make the cut? What happens to the ones that didn't even make the cut? How does that make them feel? You see, this is what's happening in our society. Is it used to be that we would be successful by a growth in a sort of a climb and hard work. But now it's a popularity contest or nothing. So what's happening to our young children, and it may be even insidious in us, is that all we have to do is get an audition. All we have to do is get out there in front of Simon Cowell, and now we are famous. What happens to Darcy Lynn when she's 17, 18, graduates from high school? Where does she go? Can she sustain it like Reba McEntire has morphed, right? We've seen Reba on Broadway. We've seen her in television shows. We've seen her in movies. Reba has morphed her gifts and her talents because she's worked hard to get them to a place where she understood her own gift and she could give it. Now, please don't hear me being down on this young gal. I'm not. But I'm trying to make a point that how our societal idea of success has changed from someone who works really hard and puts the time and effort and energy into whatever it is they do, and to the overnight sensation. It's become out there. We wonder why our children are anxious. We wonder why our children are depressed. I can't make it on American Idol, so why bother? My talent isn't good enough. My gifts aren't strong enough. But you see, if we each have a unique talent, then we weren't all supposed to be on American Idol. We weren't supposed to be overnight successes. We were supposed to work hard at giving our gifts and our talents, and in that tension, that creative tension of working and experiencing, of risking and growing, then there is the rooting and the deepening and, like Reba, a breadth of our skills and our talents. It's fascinating to me that people think that Reba McEntire, a seasoned performer, never gets scared. Are you kidding me? Of course she does. Eric Butterworth, the minister who wrote this book, he always said, if you as a minister get up there and you do not have butterflies, then you don't have something important to say, sit down. Yes, I do it Sunday after Sunday. Okay, people say, oh, it looks so easy. When I look up at that one and I see 11 o'clock, I think, oh no, it's my turn. Maybe Ashley can sing another hour or two and I don't have to stand up. But it's a performance. There's a tension. There's an anxiety on the line that makes that expression alive and vibrant and dynamic. It isn't that we're depressed. We have taught ourselves to believe that success is only the American Idol version, and if you are short that version for any reason, you are not it. And so we struggle. And that's exactly what he's talking about, only he's talking about it from a 1983 point of view. But it still lies. And the problem with this, it's so subtle that it touches all of our lives. No one here is exempt from this kind of American Idol ideal of what success is supposed to be like. Let me give you a closer to home example. A month ago, I was home visiting my family and celebrating the life of my mother. after the funeral, the next day after the funeral, we went to church with, the whole family went to church with my father. And of course, our family is Catholic. We went to St. Cecilia's in downtown Cincinnati, which is a beautiful church. Think big, Gothic church that, you know, like the ones we saw in France. So I come in, and my dad always wants to sit on the front pew, so you have to kind of be obvious about looking around, you know. And I mean, the beautiful stained glass windows, the flying buttresses, the choir loft, which I was sure when I looked back where there was at least 20 people strong, full pipe organ against the back, and we're sitting in the front. So the church begins to fill up, Mass begins to be said. I love Father Jamie. He is a great preacher. He's a great minister. I love him very much. I love to listen to him. And so then it comes time for communion, if you're familiar with the Catholic service. And I thought to myself, is everyone in Cincinnati taking communion today? There must have been 500 people in that church, and they all were taking communion. And down the aisle, there were 5 servers, if you are familiar with the Catholic Mass. There were 5 servers along, and they just kept coming and coming and coming and coming. And I thought, wow, and the church was vibrant and alive, and the worship was awesome, and it was a really uplifting experience. And then I came home. Think about it. From this church with 500 people, you don't think I don't make a comparison? You don't think we don't make a comparison? We have to be careful, my friends. We say, oh, look at all the people at Life Church. Look at all the people that are on the move. How come our church isn't that big? How come as if there's something wrong with it. As if it doesn't match the standard of American Idol of churches in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It becomes insidious in us. It becomes a slowing and a depression. And I have to honestly say to myself, you know what, Marianne? You know, you're the leader of consciousness here, and so there's a part of it you got to get clear on. Remember when I told you about my sabbatical in July? It wasn't a lot of fun. Well, God and I had an awful lot of talking about this topic. You are the leader of consciousness, but it is not all my consciousness. It is our consciousness. See, what happens in churches that aren't growing or dwindling or whatever it might be, they say, the obvious solution is we get rid of the minister. And so what happens, and we see it across the board, I don't care what denomination, they fire the minister, wait till they die or retire, whatever, and then they get somebody new and young and vibrant, as if that's going to fix our consciousness. It does not fix ours. And we can't understand why the church splits. We can't understand why it's no longer comfortable to go there, because our consciousness isn't ready for such a dramatic change. What has to happen is we have to grow right here, right now in the pew. We have to grow. See, in order to be someone who lets go of the American Idol syndrome of success and finds success in their own life, whether it be social, spiritual, physical, mental, it doesn't matter. It starts where? With us. So I challenge you. What does it take to change consciousness? What does it take to grow our church? Now, it's not saying that we shouldn't go out and see what other people do, but then we have to hold it up and say, is that genuine to us? Is that part of who and what we are? If I came out in my Tony Bahama shirt, my sandals, and my little shorts, and said, hey, what? How y'all today? Like, I'm being hip. You'd all go, get that old lady down off of that podium. I said, where did she get that outfit? Okay? It's not genuine to me. And it's out of integrity and disingenuous to who I am. So when we look at what others do, it's wonderful. But then we have to say, how is it in alignment with us and what we teach? And we can grab onto 100 new things. Folks, all you have to do is just walk out the door and grab onto 100 new things. But if we are not changing as spiritual beings, there's no point in being here anyway. Because this is a transformational message of our spiritual journey. Our lives should be changed by what we hear, by what we experience, by what we live, and by what we teach. And if we're not, then we're just coming here and having a great time of fellowship. And that's okay, but you could go to the YMCA to do that. So we've got to get clear. Let's let go of the idea that success looks like Life Church or Victory Christian or Rhema College. What does it look like for the Unity Church of Christianity? What does it look like for our own growth individually and then collectively? Because it's collectively then that we begin to draw new people, that energy itself. You know, how willing are you to change really? How willing are you to contribute really? And I'm not just talking about money, I'm talking about your energy. I'm talking about your spiritual discipline. I'm talking about your challenge of your own growth and faith. I'm talking about an all-encompassing way that you come to church as a spiritual being, listening, feeling, opening to a new awareness of spirit. That's what makes this church great, because it's our great. Living into the message that we have to share, which is totally different than any other church. And that's fine, and that's wonderful. They're uniquely them, we are uniquely us. So you see my point here, both with the American Idol image and the church image, is that it does begin to filter in at some level. If we're not and it should happen overnight, we're not patient with healing. We're not patient with our financial struggles. We're not patient with our next door neighbors. We're not patient with our kids. We're not patient. Hey, it's just life. The seasons all around us are teaching patience and trust and depth and soul work. And that's the message we have to share. That's what's important about our unity message. So as you read through the book and you look at the handouts, he's talking about it, remember, from a 1983 perspective. But that perspective was, I'm going to almost call it the tip of an iceberg. He was almost prophetic in seeing how that attitude that workers have, well, you know, I don't do a finished product and so I really don't care. And the model of success, I can't be American Idol, so I'm not going to try, actually absolutely undergirds our society and our strength. Because we feel, why bother? I'm never going to make it on television. I'm never going to make it on, you know, YouTube. I'm never going to make it, so why try? Think of what it does to our children. Think of what it does to ourselves. We are not immune from it. So as you read through this handout today, and he's talking about work, our challenge then is to see how it is that we come, the attitude that we come to our work. And that work may be as simple as, today my kids are coming over and we're going to have lunch. That work may be as easy as, you know, today is a good day to get out and rake the leaves. Today is a good day to volunteer at the church. Today is a good day to do whatever it is we do. And we come with an attitude that this is all of my creative ability. This is who I am. This is being in integrity with myself. Why do we think church is just here? God is always expressing through everything we do. But when we negate it, put blinders on it and say, well, I haven't hit the American Idol standard, so it's not good enough. We become anxious and we become depressed and we feel there's no reason to go on. What's happening to our younger children, our early teen children? Suicide. You haven't even done anything yet. You haven't gone anywhere yet. How can you think your life is over? But you see what I'm saying? It's because if it isn't here, then I can't be. So let us, who are touched by that energy that's out in our world, because we live in this world, in this culture, not be sort of tied to thinking we have to be like them. Rather, our focus is to recommit to our work individually, and as we individually come into that work and come to the places of discomfort and listening to the voice of God within us that's calling us, encouraging us, nurturing us, asking us to forgive, asking us to make amends, asking us to do things that are just that little uncomfortable so that we can be in an integrity and we can be that light that we were called to be. When we individually do it, then we collectively do it. And there's something powerful about that draw, about that light, about that life. People are drawn to people who live life from that place of light. People are drawn to other people and collective organizations who live that light. Let us be careful not to fall into that same depression. We're not like them, so we're not. Because in reality, we are who we are. And it's not only good enough, it is the best that we can be. Thank you for joining me today, and God bless.